Godzilla is one of the few franchises that has been around long enough to see almost all the changes in the way films are made. For decades, this series used suits, props, and live-action effects to create a world that, at the time, was considered frighteningly realistic. The past few decades, Godzilla films become much more modernized, with more and more CGI being used to develop the G-Man himself, as well as the surrounding elements of the monster movies. But did you know that CGI was actually used in the very first Godzilla? Today we'll be looking at the history of CGI in Godzilla. Let's get to it. Yes, the original Godzilla did have a very primitive form of CGI. And just like many of the films to follow, this CGI was used to make Godzilla's atomic blast. While most of the shots of the breath was made by shooting a mist of sorts from the suit's mouth, some of the faraway shots of the breath were made with CGI, in the form of just a simple white beam. Fast forward to Godzilla vs. Kong and you can see Godzilla's breath in full CGI, and this time, it was in color. This was also the time when Godzilla's spines would glow that classic blue before releasing his blast that we have seen throughout most of the movies in this series. The Godzilla films of the 70s were the first to use CGI in a more modern way. The atomic blast now had a resemblance to fire, as it had these rigid edges that really made that nice flame look. And we started to see CGI take more of a role in the films, with almost every monster having their own special attack made with CGI and a combination of practical effects. 90s Godzilla films were possibly the best at combining CGI and the classic practical effects. Everything from how the monster's attacks were generated and unleashed, to crazy panned out shots of an entire landscape being consumed by some sort of crazy energy or just total destruction. This was all now fully utilizing the power of CGI. One of the more special moments with this new technology was used to create Burning Godzilla, a form of the creature that was in its last days and on the brink of death. Using awesome practical effects within the suit and adding CGI effects over what was real gave viewers a truly monstrous creation, even in his last moments. Now, Zilla may have all sorts of haters, but this was the first time we've seen a Godzilla film that used CGI to make this iconic monster, and it didn't just end there. Everything from entire parts of New York, to landscapes, to vehicles, and thousands of baby Zillas was made utilizing CG. To get this look as real as possible, the artists would scan props made in high detail to get that level of authenticism that was desired. With Godzilla, a CGI wireframe would be the first step in creating the monster, followed by adding muscles, tendons, skin, and lastly, an overhaul to add all that little special sexy detail, creating a monster that looked very good for the time that the movie was released. And yes, his fire breath was indeed made with CGI. Now, many people think that Zilla didn't actually breathe fire, saying it was the cars blowing up, but apparently people forgot the other times he used the fire breath, where it clearly shows it originating from his mouth. So yeah, just wanted to throw that in here. After Zilla's debut, every Godzilla film to follow would start to use CGI more and more frequently. But the Toho films still maintained the classic suit design of Godzilla for most situations. Then legendary Godzilla burst onto the scene and completely changed the way Godzilla was designed. The MonsterVerse Godzilla was the first to be completely CGI in every way, using another newer form of CGI, motion capture, to realistically mimic the movements that a monster like this would have made. It took the team months just to design and sculpt out the way they wanted this Godzilla to look, and then they painstakingly designed the beast with CGI, using many of the same steps that were used in the Zilla film. To go more in depth of how scenes in Godzilla 2014 were made, here's a quick example of the entire process. First off, let's define a plate. These are otherwise known as CGI layers that help make up the final scene in a film. These plates would be used to put together every piece of the scene like one giant and alive puzzle. From backgrounds to live-action sets and actors, to CGI environments like mist, fog, and rain, adding in the monsters, explosions, buildings. Each plate would be placed until the final product was made. The entire process is much more complicated than you would think. Certain VR technologies were even used in this film as well to create some of the epic 360 painting shots like the scene on the bridge. Sure, Godzilla 2014 was not in the film much, but seeing how much effort was put into the time he was on the screen really makes you respect these scenes even that much more. Shin Godzilla used many of the classic Toho filming techniques that were used in every Godzilla film they made, but this time the Godzilla was completely CGI, just like the MonsterVerse Godzilla, using many of the same CGI techniques and technologies to create these crazy shots. And of course, we cannot forget the new anime Godzilla films are made with CGI and other more traditional animation techniques. Godzilla is the king of the monsters, the true leader of monster films. His long history has enabled the franchise to evolve and grow with the times, going from nothing but practical effects to movies that had nearly 1,000 shots made with CGI. Looking towards the future, I can't wait to see the big man change and adapt even more. We can't thank you residents enough for helping Al and I build DangerVille to where it is right now. I mean, every week we continue to grow this community, and with your support it really makes this journey so much more fun. So really guys, thank you. If you feel like we've earned it, become a resident today and spread the word of DangerVille. This has been Jacob. Peace out everybody.